Governor Wes Moore downplaying crime in Baltimore. Some experts say the governor could be sending the wrong message.
3 women arrested for protesting at BG&E worksite, now taking legal action of their own. Why they say the company needs to be held in check, and the response from city leaders.
And a sea of color in the streets of Charles Village. Sights and sounds from today's Baltimore Pride Parade.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening. I'm Vincent Hill.
And I'm Rebecca Pryor in for Maxine. We begin with those 3 women arrested for protesting at a BGE utility work site earlier this week. They're now fighting back.
It is possible to go up against what I feel is a predatory company.
People all over Baltimore are outraged.
It disgusts me. We deserve better.
Their attorney says a class action lawsuit has been filed against BG&E, demanding the installation of outside gas regulators stop immediately.
I spoke with those 3 women and dozens of other Baltimore City residents about their frustrations today.
Excuse me, I need you to back up.
For Claudia Towles, Magdalena Fitzsimmons, and Sandra Seward. After an overnight stay in central booking, the handcuffs are now off.
It wasn't pleasant, but I have to tell you, I'm glad I did it, and I would do it again.
I'm going that way.
But with dozens of community members at their back, they say their battle with Baltimore Gas and Electric has just begun.
And they're using their influence to bully and to just go through neighborhoods and completely dismiss our rights. And that is not okay.
A lawsuit has been filed.
Attorney Thuruvik Naraja says a class action lawsuit has been filed on behalf of 14 Baltimore City residents, plus 121 others and counting who plan to join in the coming days.
People all over Baltimore are outraged.
They're seeking an immediate injunction to prevent BG&E from installing these external gas regulators and from shutting off gas to homes who refuse the utility work, like Donna Sylvester's, the site of the protest.
Thursday, I was not even home.
Sylvester claiming BG&E only gave her hours notice before cutting her service, despite Maryland law requiring at least a 14-day warning period.
It just feels completely unfair and bullying.
But BGE claims proper notice was given, sending a statement to Fox 45 that reads in part, quote, "Our desired approach is to avoid service interruptions, but in some situations it is necessary to maintain the integrity of our systems." The utility company going on to insist placing regulators outside the home is safer, to which residents question, so what's the rush?
If they're so confident in their position, they should be able to put this off like a couple of days and allow the court to decide whether they're right or whether we're right.
BGE and the city is trying to scare people off and push them to do something that we don't have any data for.
They're in it for the profit. They're not in it for the interests of the public.
It remains unclear who's footing the bill for the fleet of new gas meters, although residents fear it will be passed on to them with higher rates. Meanwhile, Sandra, Donna, and Claudia also waiting to learn the fate of several charges.
And you are in violation of criminal law Title 6, 304.
Including disorderly conduct and failing to obey a lawful order, which could result in fines or jail time.
Look, if these charges don't get dropped, the criminal justice system will literally laugh them out of court.
The fact that those resources were used for a private company to bully their way through an unlawful action, we should all be outraged. Now on Friday, Fox 45 News pressed Mayor Brandon Scott and Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley on whether Thursday's police response was an appropriate use of the department's resources. Here's what they said.
BPD did their work, Monsi and the mayor's office of neighborhood did their work of explaining that to folks, and then unfortunately BPD had to take action after warnings. Folks can protest. They could have went across the street. They can protest until the cows come home.
All they had to do was move to the left or the right and give them access to the property and where they needed to work, and we would not have done anything. But
if you'd like to hear more about this issue, including how to join this class action lawsuit, go to this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com.
BGE has seen its fair share of backlash this year in Baltimore. The city struck a new deal with the company over the city's conduit system, but 2 members of the Board of Estimates tried to stop that vote, but Mayor Brandon Scott went through with the deal without their approval. Now, just 2 days after the mayor approved it, BGE requested annual rate hikes during each year of the contract, increasing the average bill a little more than $10 a month. The Maryland Public Service Commission would have to approve that.
A 37-year-old man was shot early this morning in Baltimore. Police found the man just after midnight. He had a gunshot wound to his head. Homicide investigations were called to the scene. We'll bring you more information when it becomes available.
Governor Wes Moore speaking at the National Press Club this week, calling out Republicans and the media, saying they're sparking fear, claiming crime is actually not as bad as people think.
The false narratives of some politicians who say that every urban area is a city in crisis. A false narrative of some in the media who say that violence is everywhere.
But some are saying the governor's take on crime has been confusing and that he's ignoring the real issues. Mixed messages from Governor Wes Moore when it comes to crime. Speaking at the National Press Club,
we know that since the 1990s, incidences of violent crime have gone down across America.
The governor saying crime is down, calling Baltimore's crime crisis a figment of the imagination.
It is fueled by a collection of false narratives that we allow to continue to exist. A false narrative of some in the media who say that violence is everywhere.
But in Baltimore, that narrative, more of a reality for mothers like Michelle Hines.
This cannot keep happening to our kids. This cannot keep being on the news.
Her 16-year-old son, Isaiah Carter, shot and killed outside of Patterson High School.
There were 19 other mothers that felt the way that I just described.
The governor appearing to turn that pain into politics.
This first myth that we need to confront is the false narrative of the politician.
But just a few weeks earlier, when unveiling his three-part crime plan to combat gun violence.
Over the past 8 years, the number of non-fatal shootings in the state of Maryland has doubled. Over the past 8 years, the number of homicides in the state of Maryland has nearly doubled.
He addressed a rise in shootings, but did not support a bill making the theft of a handgun a felony.
We know that since the 1990s, incidences of violent crime have gone down across America.
It's really confusing.
Delegate Kathy Schlega, who supported the bill, calling out the governor's flip-flop messaging.
The guns used in these horrific murders that we see across our region are largely stolen guns. So if you're serious about gun crime, why not make stealing a gun a felony?
There is definitely a mixed message, but it's a message to two different audiences.
Political analyst John Deedy says Governor Moore may be more focused on looking ahead.
He is definitely someone people are talking about for 2028. The DC audience, the audience that elevates your profile, elevates you as far as national prominence.
While overlooking the needs of the people of Maryland.
Local people, they know what the situation is. National people have no clue what goes on outside the Beltway. They have no idea.
So that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Governor Moore is sending mixed messages on crime in Baltimore? So far, 88% of people who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. 3 people were injured, including 2 firefighters, after a fire along the Cantor Road in Middle River. You can see flames shooting up from a townhome. 9 adults and 5 kids were displaced, and the Red Cross is currently working with them. The cause of that fire is still under investigation.
As you can see there, plenty of celebration on the streets of Charles Village this afternoon for Baltimore's annual Pride Parade. This year's theme is One Love, One Heart, One Pride, to honor the contributions made by the LGBTQIA+ community in Charm City. The parade is in its 48th year and continues to see massive turnouts. The fun continued after the parade with a block party along North Avenue.
Parade's almost as old as I am. All smiles at the parade today. The rain didn't damper Samuel's spirit. He shared these pictures after proposing during the parade. Congratulations to that couple. Mayor Brandon Scott was out in full support, shaking hands and greeting community members. High praise from Oliver, who says Baltimore Pride was his favorite Pride ever. And how do you know it's a Pride Parade in Baltimore? Well, with the Old Bay truck in the background, of course. Thanks to Doc for sharing this one.
Gotta have Old Bay. No matter the occasion.
I know, right? No matter the occasion. That's right.
And rain or shine today in Baltimore. We saw rain, and we also saw in a few of those pride pictures, and the sun was also poking out in some others.
Yeah, meteorologist Jasmine Lomax is here. And Jasmine, how are you looking for the rest of the weekend?
Well, it's going to look pretty similar tomorrow. Some areas staying mostly dry, but other areas dealing with rain and the potential for storms at times. We're still dealing with that unsettled pattern. Now, today we did have some pockets of heavy rain and a few storms move across the state as indicated by those pictures, and it's all part of a larger system. Looking around the region, we've got the most rain closer to a stationary front toward New England, but what we have in our area, spotty showers, few storms, that's what's going to continue overnight and then into the day tomorrow. So if you do have any plans to be outside, you'll want to make sure that you're keeping watch on the radar. We're not talking a washout for the day, but enough rain to impact some of your plans. Coming up, I'll have a look at the timing of the rain and when we finally get a break from the rain in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Thank you. Coming up, former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon hints at running again. An expert discusses her potential path to victory and some roadblocks in her way.
A major drug ring uncovered in Baltimore, how GBRS played a vital role in taking it down.
And chaos in Russia as soldiers turn their backs on Vladimir Putin, the march to Moscow, and why they're choosing to rebel.
I feel if the voters, because that's the voters are the most important, and they have to make choices. If they gave me that choice, I would not let them down.
Former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon hinting at a possible run for mayor in 2024 during a Your Voice, Your Future town hall this week on Fox 45. The mayoral primary in Baltimore is less than a year away, and the field could be starting to take shape.
Yeah, Dixon promises to focus on crime and raising performance in city schools if she's elected, but the jury's still out on how fit she is to lead given her past controversies. Fox 45's Taylor Stewart has more.
She is a familiar face with a track record in Baltimore City. We spoke with a reverend with strong ties to the community who says that's a good thing, depending on who you ask.
Mayor Dixon is a viable candidate. She presents to people an opportunity, a solution.
Former Mayor Sheila Dixon hinting at another run for Baltimore City's top job.
I know I can make a tremendous difference.
Dixon elected mayor in 2007, potentially vying for that seat again come 2024. hanging her hat on impact and the historic drop in the city's homicide rate during her time in office.
I feel if the voters, because that's the voters are the most important, and they have to make choices. If they gave me that choice, I would not let them down.
Dr. Al Hathaway, then a reverend at West Baltimore's Union Baptist Church, now a board member for the Greater Baltimore Committee.
From the time that she was in office to now, she's done some very positive things in the community. She's done work with minority businesses. She's done work in the community in terms of economic development. She clearly understands what to do.
But whether she's the right person for the job, a less cut and dry answer.
Mayor Scott is growing in his role as mayor. There is now an alignment between the federal government, between the state, and between our Baltimore City State's attorney in terms of enforcement.
Hathaway points to progress made by the mayor's group violence reduction strategy, responsible for the takedown of a drug trafficking ring announced on Friday. He questions whether now is the time to change course, whether Scott, Dixon, or another challenger. He says the best candidate must come to the table with answers.
What's going to be my management strategy? What's going to be my administrative strategy around key offices, key agencies? I'm going to ensure that I have the best candidate and best person in those offices. You can't get away from this. I've got to have a strategy for improving schools.
Just as Mayor Scott's track record on schools and crime follows him to the ballot box, Dixon's would too. Taylor Stewart, Fox 45 News.
After 2 years, Dixon's tenure as mayor came to an abrupt halt when she pled guilty to a misdemeanor embezzlement charge and was forced to resign. Dixon says she felt shame and embarrassment, saying she sought mental health help. Dixon says she'll have to rebuild trust among voters. If you missed Armstrong's conversation with Sheila Dixon, you can watch it right now on foxbaltimore.com. It will also re-air tomorrow at 1 on My TV Baltimore.
New developments in the Ukraine war tonight as a group of Russian rebels turn their backs on Vladimir Putin. The rebels appeared to strike a deal after advancing back to Moscow and threatening city safety. The rebels are with the Wagner mercenary army. Their leader ordered his troops to turn on Russia, accusing Putin of trying to kill his men. Putin says there's no reason for concern, but U.S. officials see an opening and some weakness in Putin's leadership.
Any turmoil is a deadly threat to our statehood, to us as a nation. This is a blow to Russia, to our people. And our actions to protect the fatherland from such a threat will be tough.
There is an opportunity here. You know that Putin's been caught flat-footed, so the next 24, 48, 72 hours are going to be crucial.
Vladimir Putin has invited the Wagner Army's leader to the Belarus in an attempt to work through their differences.
New developments in Canada as federal agents join the investigation into an imploded sub. What they're hoping to find nearly a week after 5 passengers lost their lives in the deep sea.
And it's been 1 year since the controversial decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The current and former vice president's argument, both sides of the debate during events today. Welcome back. Let's go live to the port of St. John's in Canada, where Canadian officials are opening an investigation into the implosion of the submersible bound for the Titanic wreckage. All 5 people on board died. Canadian officials say they're interviewing people who were on board the Polar Prince. That's the vessel that helped deploy the Titan underwater. Investigators will also interview family members of the deceased and listen to audio recordings from the bridge of the Polar Prince.
It is not the function of the board to assign blame or determine civil or criminal responsibility.
Officials hope to piece together what caused the implosion of the submersible. Its debris was found nearly 13,000 feet below the surface.
It's been 1 year since the Supreme Court's controversial decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, striking down nearly 50 years of federal abortion protections. Democrats continue to slam the decision, calling on voters to take action.
We, all of us, are now called upon to advance the promise of freedom, including the freedom of every woman to make decisions about her own body, not the government telling her what to do.
Leading reproductive rights groups like Planned Parenthood and Emily's List recently announced their endorsement of President Biden and Vice President Harris for re-election next year. Supporters of